The growl of Harley-Davidson engines shattered the morning calm of Eagle Ridge, Montana. Sarah Miller's hand instinctively tightened around the Colt 45 hidden beneath the counter of her diner. 20 motorcycles thundered down Route 91, kicking up dust clouds that momentarily eclipsed the rising sun. At 38, Sarah still turned heads. Honey blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, eyes sharp as cut emeralds, and the kind of fitness that came from hard work rather than a gym membership. But today, those eyes narrowed with something beyond caution. Fear. The night before, she had held her 8-year-old daughter Emma, close, whispering promises of protection against the child's soft hair. "Nothing will ever happen to you, baby girl. Not while I'm alive." Now, as the motorcycle slowed near her last chance diner and gas, Sarah wondered if that promise would be tested sooner than she thought. The lead rider, a mountain of a man with a silver beard cascading over a leather vest, signaled to the others. 4 peeled off, headed for her parking lot. The rest continued down the highway, a parade of gleaming chrome and threatening noise. "Mama!" Emma's voice came from the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit she claimed to have outgrown. Sarah's expression transformed instantly. "Hey, sunshine, go get dressed for school. I made blueberry pancakes." "But those motorcycles, just customers, baby. Go on now." As Emma disappeared, Sarah took a deep breath and positioned herself behind the register. The bell above the door jingled, unnervingly cheerful, as 4 men entered her establishment. The Last Chance Diner was pure Americana, red vinyl booths, checkerboard floor, and a vintage Wurlitzer jukebox in the corner, currently playing Roy Orbison's In Dreams. The neon sign above the counter had been casting its blue glow since 1962. It was a place where time had graciously stopped somewhere in the mid-'80s. The bikers claimed the booth nearest the door. Their leather cuts bore a distinctive patch Sarah had been dreading to see in person, a raven with flames for wings clutching a skull in its talons. The Hellfire Ravens. The rumors had been true after all. A moment later, Emma emerged in her school-clothes backpack slung over one shoulder. Sarah guided her daughter to the rear door, where Sheriff Walt Garrison waited in his patrol car. At 68, Walt's weathered face told the story of 4 decades in law enforcement. His handshake was still firm as iron. "Morning, little lady." He tipped his hat to Emma, then lowering his voice for Sarah, "Saw our visitors. I can stick around." "Just get her to school safely," Sarah replied. "I can handle this." Once Emma was safely away, Sarah approached the biker's table with coffee pot in hand and steel in her spine. "Welcome to Last Chance. Coffee to start." The largest man, his arms a canvas of faded military tattoos, nodded. "4 cups and information." Sarah poured methodically, using the moment to assess each man. The leader appeared to be in his mid-50s with a knife scar running from ear to chin. 2 younger men flanked him, while the 4th kept his back to the wall, eyes constantly scanning. "We're looking for Iron Mike Blackwood," the scarred man said. "Heard he passed through." Sarah maintained her neutral expression. "Don't know any Mike Blackwood. Not many strangers come through Eagle Ridge." "That right?" The man extended a hand. "Ray Wilson. My friends call me the Knife, for obvious reasons." He traced the scar with one finger. "Iron Mike's our president. Big guy, 65, silver beard. Leads our Montana chapter." "Sorry, can't help you." Sarah turned to walk away, but Ray's hands shot out, gripping her wrist. "Nice place you got here. Be a shame if something happened to it." The diner had emptied of its regular customers. Sarah was alone with these men, but the Colt was within reach, and she calculated her odds with cold precision. "You're hurting my arm," she said evenly. Ray released her with a smirk. "Just making conversation, ma'am. We'll be seeing a lot of each other now that we're setting up shop in Eagle Ridge." "This is a quiet town." "Not anymore." Ray slid from the booth. "Tell Sheriff Garrison the Hellfire Ravens send their regards. We remember Waco 93. We know how to deal with law enforcement." The bikers left without paying, the bell jingling with mocking cheerfulness as the door slammed shut. Sarah watched them mount their bikes and roar away. Only then did her hands begin to tremble. She reached beneath the counter and withdrew the Colt 1911 45 ACP, checking its magazine with practiced movements that would have surprised anyone who knew her only as the local diner owner. The bell jingled again. Sarah swiftly returned the pistol to its hiding place. Sheriff Garrison entered, his face grim. "Emma's at school. You okay?" They're just testing boundaries, Walt. Those weren't ordinary bikers, Sarah. Hellfire Ravens are the real deal. Drug running protection rackets worse. Montana Dispatch had a feature on them last month. Nightline did a whole segment. Sarah wiped down the counter with more force than necessary. I can handle a few overgrown delinquents. Sarah. Walt's tone made her look up. They mentioned Iron Mike Blackwood. That name mean anything to you? She hesitated a fraction too long. No. Walt sighed heavily, lowering himself onto a stool. Don't lie to an old cop, Sarah. Jack warned me this might happen someday. The mention of her husband's name froze her in place. Jack is dead. 3 years now. Is he? Sarah's eyes met his, a silent communication passing between them. What do you know, Walt? I know Iron Mike Blackwood worked with Jack in '91. I know you weren't always Sarah Miller, devoted mother and diner owner. She glanced around the empty establishment, then locked the front door, turning the sign to closed. We need to talk. An hour later, Sarah stood in her modest farmhouse 3 miles outside town. The 2-story white clapboard structure had been built in the '40s by a cattle rancher. Now it housed secrets far more dangerous than its quaint exterior suggested. In her bedroom, Sarah knelt before a floor safe concealed beneath a braided rug. The combination came to her fingers automatically, though she hadn't opened it in over a year. Inside lay a Halliburton aluminum case, military grade, with a sophisticated digital lock. She pressed her thumb to the scanner. The case opened to reveal an array of items from another life, multiple passports in different names, all bearing her photograph. A tactical knife, a satellite phone, several USB drives, stacks of $100 bills, and beneath it all a file folder labeled Operation Kingfisher, with top secret stamped across it in fading red ink. She lifted out the file, spread its contents across the bed. Photographs of younger versions of herself in Navy uniform. Mission reports. And there, staring back at her from a surveillance photo, was Iron Mike Blackwood, younger without the beard, but unmistakable. Beside him in the photo stood Jack, her husband, both men in SEAL Team 6 gear. Sarah sank onto the bed, memories flooding back. She hadn't always been a diner owner. Once she had been Lieutenant Sarah Reeves, NCIS special agent, assigned to investigate narcotics trafficking through naval bases. Her specialty, deep cover operations. She had met Jack during the Panama operation in '89, working to dismantle Manuel Noriega's drug network during Operation Just Cause. They had fallen in love amid the chaos, married quickly, and continued serving together until Emma was born. Then they had made the decision to retire to civilian life, settling in Eagle Ridge 8 years ago. The official story was that Jack died in a car accident 3 years ago. The truth was far more complicated. The satellite phone from the safe suddenly chirped. Only 3 people in the world had this number. Hello, Sarah answered. Ghostbird, this is Condor. The voice belonged to Captain James Reynolds, her former commanding officer, now 73 and supposedly retired in Arizona. Perimeter breach confirmed. How bad? 4 scouts mentioned Iron Mike directly. They're establishing territory in Eagle Ridge. Iron Mike went dark after Desert Storm. Dishonorable discharge. Rumors of mercenary work. Now he surfaces as a biker gang leader. Something's off. You think he knows who I am? The question isn't if he knows, but why now, after all this time? Sarah stared at the photo of Jack. What if Jack isn't dead? A heavy silence. Then we recovered Dave from the explosion site, Ghostbird. But no body. Listen to me. If Iron Mike is in Eagle Ridge, it's not coincidence. The operation that went wrong, Jack was investigating him for selling military-grade weapons. If Mike is there, he's either tying up loose ends or looking for something. The evidence Jack gathered, Sarah's mind raced. He always said if anything happened to him, everything I needed would be in the safe. Is it? Sarah rifled through the contents again, finding a small key she'd overlooked. Not for a door, something smaller. I need to check something. I'll call back. She ended the call and went to Emma's room. The little girl's space was typical of an 8-year-old stuffed animal's books, a desk for homework. Sarah ran her hand along the underside of the desk until she felt it a small compartment, expertly crafted to be invisible. The key fit perfectly. Inside was a single USB drive, unlike the others in the safe. This one was military-grade titanium cased and waterproof. Jack had hidden it where no one would think to look, yet where Sarah would eventually find it if she went looking. "Oh, Jack," she whispered, "what did you get yourself into?" She was about to return to her room when she heard the unmistakable sound of motorcycle engines approaching the house. Sarah moved with practiced efficiency, securing the USB drive in her pocket and returning the rest of the items to the safe. She retrieved the Colt 45, checking it once more before moving to the front window. 20 motorcycles rolled up her long driveway, kicking up dust in the afternoon sun. At their head rode a massive figure Sarah instantly recognized from the surveillance photos, though he'd aged considerably. Iron Mike Blackwood, his silver beard flowing in the wind, looked exactly like what he now was, the patriarch of a criminal empire. Sarah considered her options. The farmhouse was defensible, but not against these numbers. She could escape through the back, but that would mean abandoning her home and possibly endangering Emma. Or she could face them, maintain her cover as an innocent widow, and try to discover why Iron Mike had really come to Eagle Ridge. She chose the third option. Sarah concealed the pistol in the small of her back beneath her flannel shirt and stepped onto the front porch as the motorcycles formed a semicircle in her yard. Iron Mike dismounted first, his movements betraying old injuries but still powerful. Up close, he was even more imposing than in the photos. 6'3", built like a battle tank, with eyes as cold as a Montana winter. The silver beard couldn't hide the scar tissue around his throat, evidence of old combat wounds. "Mrs. Miller." His voice was gravel and whiskey. "Sorry to drop by unannounced." "This is private property," Sarah replied, one hand casually near her concealed weapon. "I'm aware." Iron Mike stepped forward. "Beautiful place, reminds me of where I grew up in Wyoming." He surveyed the farmhouse, the barn, the sprawling fields beyond. Jack did well for himself. The mention of her husband's name, so casual from this man's lips, sent ice through Sarah's veins. "You knew my husband." Iron Mike's smile never reached his eyes. "Navy's a small community, Mrs. Miller, especially for those of us in specialized units." Ray the Knife Wilson emerged from the group, flanking his leader. "Boss, we should discuss business." "Right," Iron Mike nodded. "Mrs. Miller, Eagle Ridge is changing. My organization is establishing roots here. Every business contributes to community protection. Your diner sits on a prime location." "Protection from what?" Sarah asked, though she knew the game all too well. "Unpredictable world these days. Fire hazards, health code violations, highway robbery." His smile widened. "We ensure none of that touches our friends. And the price of this friendship, $2,000 a month. Very reasonable for the security provided." Sarah crossed her arms. "And if I decline?" Ray stepped forward, but Iron Mike held up a hand, stopping him. "Mrs. Miller, I respect your position as a widow raising a child alone. I'm not without compassion. Take 3 days to consider my offer. Ray here will check back with you then." Something in his tone told Sarah there was more at play than a simple protection racket. Iron Mike was watching her too carefully, studying her reactions with the assessment of a trained operative. He knows, she realized. He's testing me. 3 days, she agreed. As the bikers mounted up to leave, Iron Mike lingered. "One more thing, Mrs. Miller. Jack ever mention Operation Kingfisher to you?" The name of the classified file in her safe. Sarah maintained her puzzled expression. "I don't know what that is." "No shame. If you remember anything, let Ray know. Could be worth a lot more than $2,000 a month to the right people." With that parting shot, Iron Mike rejoined his crew, and the Hellfire Ravens thundered away from her property in a cloud of dust and exhaust. Sarah waited until they were out of sight before allowing her mask to slip. Her hands shook with suppressed rage and fear. Whatever game Iron Mike was playing, he had just made it clear this wasn't about territory or protection money. This was personal. She pulled out her phone and called Sheriff Garrison. "Walt, I need to get Emma, now." "Already on it," the sheriff replied. "Got a deputy bringing her to my place. What happened?" "Iron Mike just paid me a visit. He mentioned Jack by name, and Operation Kingfisher." A sharp intake of breath on the line. "That's not good." "No, it means he knows exactly who I am, and possibly who Jack really was." "What's your play?" Sarah gazed at the dust still settling on her driveway. "I need 3 days to figure that out. Can Emma stay with you?" "Of course, Clara will be thrilled to have her. But Sarah, you can't face this alone." "I'm not alone. I've got you, don't I?" The sheriff's chuckle held little humor. An old man with a bad hip and a service revolver against a small army of outlaws bikers. Great odds. I've faced worse. Sarah ended the call and went back inside to pack a bag for Emma. As she moved through her daughter's room, selecting clothes and comfort items, her gaze fell on a family photo on the nightstand. Jack herself and Emma at Yellowstone 2 summers before Jack's death. They looked so normal, so happy. The facade of Sarah Miller, grieving widow and dedicated mother, had been carefully constructed over years. Now it was crumbling, and she had 3 days to either shore it up or abandon it entirely. That evening, Sheriff Garrison's house became an impromptu war room. The modest ranch-style home on the outskirts of town had been waltzed since his wife passed 15 years earlier. Now it served as both sanctuary for Emma and strategic headquarters. Emma was already asleep in the guest room, surrounded by stuffed animals Clara Garrison had saved from their own children, now grown with families of their own. Sarah sat at the kitchen table with Walt, the USB drive from Jack's hiding place between them. "If we access this, there's no going back," Walt warned. "Whatever Jack hid, Iron Mike wants it badly." "I need to know what got my husband killed," Sarah replied, "or if he's even really dead." The sheriff nodded grimly. "My computer is too old for this. We need someone with real technical skills." "Mason Thompson," Sarah suggested. "Doc. Don, the medic? He's good with computers. Former Special Forces communications specialist before he became a medic. Retired to Eagle Ridge 5 years ago. Regular at the diner." Walt's eyebrows rose. "You've been keeping tabs on the veterans in town." "Old habits. I'll call him." An hour later, Mason Doc Thompson arrived carrying a battered laptop case and looking concerned. At 67, Doc retained the lean physique of a lifetime soldier. His hair had gone silver, but his dark eyes remained sharp and assessing. "Sheriff said it was urgent," he said as Sarah let him in. "Something about computer troubles." Once inside, with the curtains drawn and Emma safely asleep, Sarah revealed the truth. Doc listened without interruption as she explained her real identity, Jack's disappearance, and Iron Mike's arrival in town. "I treated Iron Mike once," Doc said when she finished. "Mogadishu 93, bullet wound to the shoulder. Mean son of a bitch even back then. Rumor was he was skimming weapons for private sale. That tracks with what Jack was investigating," Sarah confirmed. Doc examined the USB drive. "Military-grade encryption, probably. I can try, but no guarantees. Anything you can tell us would help." Doc connected the drive to his laptop, then ran several programs in rapid succession, his fingers moving with surprising dexterity for a man his age. "Definitely encrypted. High-level stuff." He typed furiously for several minutes, then sat back. "I can crack this, but not tonight. Maybe not even tomorrow. Need some equipment from my place." "We have 3 days before Ray comes calling," Sarah said. "Iron Mike practically admitted he knows who I really am. If they get aggressive, then we need to be ready," Walt finished. "Sarah, no offense, but 1 woman and 2 old men won't cut it against the Hellfire Ravens." Doc's expression turned thoughtful. "Not just us. VFW Post 6789. The Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall," Sarah asked. "Tuesday nights are poker nights. Every veteran at the county shows up, many owing their lives to medics like me." Doc smiled grimly. "Iron Mike isn't the only one with brothers in arms." The following morning, Sarah reopened the diner as if nothing had changed. Maintaining normalcy was crucial both for the town's sake and to avoid alerting Iron Mike that she was mobilizing. The breakfast rush came and went, locals whispering about the bikers, but finding reassurance in Sarah's calm presence. At 10:30, the bell jingled, and Ray, the knife Wilson, entered alone. Sarah tensed, but he merely took a stool at the counter. "Coffee black," he ordered, "and information." Sarah poured his coffee. "I have until tomorrow to decide about your offer." "This isn't about that," Ray's voice dropped. "Iron Mike's interested in your husband's military connections, specifically what he might have stored away for safekeeping." Sarah wiped the counter, buying time to think. "Jack died 3 years ago in a car accident." "Did he?" "Ali." Ray's smile was knowing. "See, we have sources that suggest otherwise. Sources that say Lieutenant Jack Miller, former SEAL Team 6, had evidence of certain transactions. Evidence he was planning to turn over to authorities before his unfortunate accident." "I don't know what you're talking about." Ray sipped his coffee. "I believe you. You're just a widow running a diner. But hypothetically, if such evidence existed, Iron Mike would pay handsomely for its return, much more than he's asking for protection. And if this hypothetical evidence didn't turn up, Ray's smile vanished. Then Iron Mike would be very disappointed. And when Iron Mike gets disappointed, people tend to suffer, especially people they care about. The threat to Emma couldn't have been clearer. "I'll look through Jack's things," Sarah said, maintaining her role. "But I don't expect to find anything like what you're describing. For your sake, I hope you do." Ray stood, leaving a $20 bill on the counter. "Keep the change. Consider it a down payment on our future relationship." After he left, Sarah immediately called Walt. They threatened Emma, explicitly. "We need to move her someplace safer than my house." "Already working on it. Doc knows a family in Missoula who can take her. Former military, completely off Iron Mike's radar." "Do it. Today." By noon, Emma was safely on her way to Missoula, escorted by one of Walt's most trusted deputies. The child had cried, not understanding why she had to leave, but Sarah had promised it was just a short vacation while Mommy handled some business. With Emma secure, Sarah could focus on the growing threat. That evening, she accompanied Doc to the VFW hall on the edge of town. The plain brick building looked unremarkable from outside, but inside gathered a formidable collection of military experience. 24 veterans ranging from Vietnam era to recent Afghanistan tours sat at tables playing cards, shooting pool, or simply sharing stories over beers. When Doc entered with Sarah, conversations quieted. "Brothers," Doc announced, "we have a situation." For the next hour, Sarah explained the threat facing Eagle Ridge, carefully editing her own background, but emphasizing Iron Mike's criminal intentions and the danger to the community. She didn't have to mention Emma. The thought of any child being threatened was enough to harden the expressions of every man present. Frank Davis, a former combat engineer in his early 60s, spoke first after she finished. "The Hellfire Ravens hit my cousin's town in Idaho last year. Started with protection rackets, escalated to taking over legitimate businesses for money laundering. By the time the feds got involved, the town was unrecognizable." Murmurs of anger rippled through the room. "What's your plan?" asked a Vietnam veteran named Bill. Sarah exchanged glances with Doc and Walt. "We need to gather intelligence on their operation, numbers, weapons, schedules. Then find a way to either force them out or bring in federal authorities with enough evidence for arrests." "They're based at the old Montana paper mill," offered Frank. "My construction company was hired to assess it for demolition last year, but the contract suddenly got canceled. Place has been busy with motorcycle traffic since last week." "The mill closed in '92, Walt added. "Isolated, multiple buildings, easy to defend. Perfect criminal headquarters." "I can get us the original blueprints," Frank said. "Still have them from the assessment. And I can get us satellite imagery," added a younger veteran who worked for the Forestry Service. Piece by piece, the veterans offered their skills, resources, and in many cases their privately owned firearms. By meeting's end, Sarah had the beginnings of a resistance force and an intelligence network spreading throughout Eagle Ridge and neighboring communities. As they were leaving, Frank pulled Sarah aside. "There's something you should know. I recognized you earlier, but I wasn't sure until you mentioned your husband's name. Jack Miller. Except when I met him, he was Jack Reeves." Sarah went still. "When did you meet my husband?" "Iraq, 2003. I was attached to a SEAL unit as an explosives expert. Jack was running an intelligence operation. We only worked together briefly, but I never forget a face." Frank studied her carefully. "You weren't just a military wife, were you?" "No," Sarah admitted after a moment. "I wasn't. Thought so. The way you handled the room back there wasn't civilian training." Frank glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. "There's something else. I also worked with Mike Blackwood. Once. The man's a traitor. Sold weapons to insurgents, got 3 of our guys killed. Jack was investigating him." "You knew about Operation Kingfisher?" "I knew Jack was building a case. Never knew the operation name." Frank's expression darkened. "If Iron Mike is here and he's asking about your husband's files, then whatever Jack uncovered must be damning enough to destroy him. Or valuable enough to kill for," Sarah added. "Either way, we're dealing with a cornered animal. Those are the most dangerous kind." Back at Sheriff Garrison's house, Doc had made progress on the USB drive. "Managed to crack the first layer of encryption," he explained, showing Sarah and Walt his laptop screen. "It's a video file, but there's deeper security I still need to bypass." The screen showed a single thumbnail, Jack's face grim and determined against a nondescript background. He recorded testimony, Sarah breathed. Evidence against Iron Mike. Possibly more than that, Doc said. The file structure suggests multiple videos, documents, maybe even audio recordings. Jack was building a comprehensive case. Can you access any of it now? Doc shook his head. Need more time and better equipment. I have some gear at my cabin that might help. Go, Sarah urged. Walt and I will continue coordinating with the VFW members. After Doc left, Sarah paced the living room, her mind racing through scenarios. Iron Mike isn't just here for territory. He's hunting for that drive specifically. Which means he knew Jack had evidence against him, Walt reasoned, and somehow traced it here. But why now? Why 3 years after Jack's supposed death? Walt considered this. Maybe he only recently discovered the evidence existed. Or maybe Jack isn't dead, Sarah finished. Maybe he's been captured this whole time. The possibility that had haunted her for 3 years suddenly seemed more real than ever. The DNA evidence at the explosion site could have been planted. Jack could be alive, imprisoned by Iron Mike, or his associates possibly being tortured for information about the USB drive. Don't go down that road unless we have proof, Walt cautioned gently. Hope can be dangerous in our line of work. Sarah knew he was right, but the seed had been planted, if there was even a chance Jack was alive. I need air, she said, stepping onto Walt's back porch. The night was clear, stars brilliant above the Montana landscape. In the distance, the silhouette of mountains reminded her how small human concerns were against the backdrop of geological time. Yet for all their smallness, those concerns involved real lives. Emma's safety, Jack's possible survival, the future of Eagle Ridge, and Sarah's own reckoning with the life she'd left behind. The satellite phone from her safe chirped in her pocket. Ghost Bird, she answered. Progress report, came Captain Reynolds' voice. Iron Mike is definitely after Jack's evidence. We're attempting to decrypt a USB drive Jack left hidden. Veterans in town are mobilizing to help. Careful with civilians, Ghost Bird. These aren't ordinary civilians. They're former military, many with combat experience. Still, Iron Mike was one of our best before he turned. Ruthless tactical mind. If he senses opposition forming, he'll strike preemptively. As if summoned by Reynolds' warning, Sarah heard motorcycles in the distance growing louder. I think that's happening now, she said, rushing back inside. Walt, we've got company. The sheriff was already up checking his service weapon. How many? Sarah peered through the curtains. At least 5 motorcycles approaching on the quiet residential street. Reynolds, I need to go. Situation developing. She ended the call and turned to Walt. 5 bikes minimum, probably Ray and his enforcers. Back door, Walt decided. My truck's in the garage. If we move now, we can avoid a confrontation until we're better prepared. They slipped out the rear of the house and into Walt's garage just as the motorcycles pulled up front. Through a small window, Sarah watched Ray and 4 Hellfire Ravens members approach the house, weapons visible beneath their leather jackets. Walt started his Ford pickup as quietly as possible, then hit the garage door opener. As the door began to rise, Ray spotted the movement and shouted to his men. The bikers rushed toward the garage. Hold on, Walt warned, then floored the accelerator. The truck burst from the garage like a charging bull, forcing the bikers to dive aside. Sarah glimpsed Ray's furious face as they sped past. Then they were on the road, racing toward the outskirts of town. They'll follow, Sarah said, checking behind them. Sure enough, headlights appeared in pursuit. Got a place in mind, Walt asked, pushing the aging truck as fast as it would go. Doc's cabin is defensible and he's already there working on the drive. Walt nodded, taking a sharp turn onto a forest access road. The truck bounced violently on the uneven surface, but the sheriff handled it with the skill of someone who'd driven these back roads for decades. The motorcycle headlights persisted behind them, drawing closer on the rough terrain where the bikes had an advantage over the larger truck. They're gaining, Sarah warned. Walt reached beneath his seat and pulled out a shotgun, handing it to Sarah. Time to remember your training, Lieutenant. Sarah checked the weapon, a Remington 870, then rolled down her window. The cold night air whipped her hair as she leaned out, taking careful aim at the lead motorcycle's front tire. She exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The shotgun roared. The lead bike swerved wildly as its tire blew out, crashing into the rider behind it. 2 down, 3 still in pursuit. Nice shooting, Walt commented, taking another turn even more sharply. Sarah chambered another round, but before she could fire again, one of the pursuing bikers raised a handgun. Muzzle flashes lit the night, and bullets pinged against the truck's tailgate. "Down!" Walt shouted as the rear window shattered. Sarah ducked inside, glass fragments raining over her. When she looked up, Walt was slumped against the steering wheel, blood darkening his shoulder. "Walt, I'm okay, Bo," he grunted, straightening up. "Flesh wound. Can you drive?" "Move over." They executed an awkward exchange of positions while the truck continued moving, Sarah sliding into the driver's seat, while Walt pushed himself into the passenger side, grimacing in pain. "Left at the fork ahead," Walt directed through clenched teeth, "then immediate right onto the fire brake. It'll lose them." Sarah followed his instructions, the truck's tires spinning in loose dirt as she made the sharp turns. The narrow fire brake was barely wide enough for the truck branches scraping the sides as they pushed through. Behind them, the motorcycle engines revved in frustration as the riders found themselves unable to follow through the dense forest passage. "They'll go around," Walt warned. "We've got maybe 5 minutes advantage." Sarah drove with grim determination, following the Walt's directions until the small clearing containing Doc's cabin came into view. A single light burned in the window, and Doc's old Jeep was parked outside. Sarah brought the truck to a stop and helped Walt out. "You're bleeding badly." "Good thing we're visiting a medic," Walt replied weakly. They stumbled to the cabin door. Sarah pounded urgently. "Doc, it's Sarah and Walt. Walt's hit." The door opened immediately, revealing Doc with a pistol in hand. His eyes widened at the sight of the bleeding sheriff. "Inside quickly. They right behind you." "Few minutes at most," Sarah confirmed, helping Walt to a chair. Doc immediately shifted to medic mode, cutting away Walt's shirt to expose the gunshot wound. "Clean through the meat of the shoulder. Missed anything vital?" "You're lucky, old man." "Don't feel lucky," Walt grimaced. Doc administered a local anesthetic, then began cleaning and bandaging the wound with practiced efficiency. Meanwhile, Sarah checked the cabin's defenses. Sturdy walls, metal shutters on the windows, multiple firearms visible on racks. "You were expecting trouble," she observed. "In my line of work, always." Doc secured the final bandage on Walt. "That'll hold until we can get you proper medical attention." "What about the USB drive?" Sarah asked. Doc pointed to his laptop on the table. "Making progress. Another hour, maybe 2. The distant sound of motorcycles ended their conversation. "They found us." Sarah moved to the window, peering through a gap in the shutters. Headlights pierced the darkness, approaching fast. "How many?" Doc asked, retrieving an AR-15 rifle from a cabinet. "At least 3 bikes, probably the ones that followed us." Doc handed Sarah the rifle and took up a shotgun for himself. "Walt, can you still shoot?" The sheriff drew his service revolver with his good arm. "Been shooting one-handed since before you were born, son." They positioned themselves at different windows, covering all approaches to the cabin. The motorcycles stopped just beyond the clearing, engines idling. "Ray Wilson," Sarah called out. "This is private property. Leave now." Ray's voice came back through the darkness. "Mrs. Miller, all we want is a conversation. Sheriff Garrison needs medical attention." "He's receiving it," Sarah replied, "from someone other than the men who shot him." "That was unfortunate. Heat of pursuit. How about we all calm down and discuss Iron Mike's offer? The one about your husband's personal effects." Sarah exchanged glances with Doc and Walt. This confirmed Iron Mike knew exactly what they had. "Nothing to discuss," she called back. "The property isn't for sale." $500,000, Ray countered. "Cash for one small USB drive. Everyone walks away happy. And if we decline, then things get complicated. For you, for the sheriff, for Doc Thompson, for your daughter, Emma." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Emma is somewhere you'll never find her." Ray's laugh carried across the clearing. "You sure about that?" "The deputy who drove her to Missoula works for us now. All it took was paying off his gambling debts." Sarah's grip tightened on the rifle. If Ray was telling the truth, Emma was in grave danger. But this could also be a bluff designed to make her surrender the drive. "I need proof Emma's with you," she demanded. "Fair enough. Check your phone." Seconds later, Sarah's cell phone chimed with an incoming message. The photo showed Emma apparently sleeping in a car seat, a Ravens member visible beside her. "That was taken 10 minutes ago," Ray called. "Ball's in your court, Mrs. Miller. Or should I say, Lieutenant Reeves?" The use of her real name and rank removed any doubt. Iron Mike knew everything about her. "What's the play?" Doc whispered. Sarah's mind raced through options, each worse than the last. Surrender the drive and hope they released Emma Refuse and risk her daughter's life. Try to fight their way out against unknown numbers. Then she remembered something Jack had taught her years ago when facing impossible odds. Change the rules of engagement. "I need to make a call," she told Doc and Walt, "and I need you both to trust me completely." They nodded and Sarah took out the satellite phone. "Condor, this is Ghostbird. Emergency Protocol Sierra Echo. Authorization code Bravo 69er Delta." Captain Reynolds' voice came back immediately. "Authorization confirmed. Assets available within 30 minutes. Coordinates." Sarah provided Doc's cabin location, then outlined her plan quickly. Reynolds listened, then gave a single-word response: approved. She ended the call and turned to her companions. "In 30 minutes, this situation changes dramatically. Until then, we need to keep Ray talking and thinking he has the upper hand." Sarah returned to the window. "Ray, I'm willing to deal, but not from inside a siege. Meet me halfway, just you and me, to discuss terms." A pause, then, "How do I know this isn't a trap?" "Because I'm a mother who wants her daughter back safely. You have all the leverage, and you know it." Another pause. "All right, you and me in the clearing, no weapons." "Give me 5 minutes." Sarah turned to Walt and Doc. "When I give the signal, hit the lights and provide covering fire. Aim high warning shots only. We need Ray alive." "Yes, what signal?" Walt asked. "Trust me, you'll know it." Sarah handed the rifle to Doc, then drew the Colt 45 from her waistband, checking it one last time. "If this goes wrong, get the USB drive to Captain Reynolds. The number's in my phone." "It won't go wrong," Doc assured her, "because you're not really going out there alone." He opened a cabinet and removed what looked like a hunting vest, but with bulges suggesting hidden armor panels. "Level TUIA protection. Won't stop a rifle round, but handguns won't penetrate." Sarah donned the vest beneath her flannel shirt, noting how it concealed well despite the protection it offered. "Ready?" Walt asked. Sarah nodded, her expression transforming from worried mother to steely operative. "Time to remind Iron Mike who he's really dealing with." Sarah stepped into the clearing, the Montana night air crisp against her skin. The protective vest beneath her flannel shirt felt reassuring but inadequate against the danger ahead. Ray, the knife, Wilson waited at the midpoint between the cabin and the tree line, his imposing figure silhouetted by moonlight. "That's far enough," Ray called when Sarah was 10 feet away. "Where's the drive? Where's my daughter?" Sarah countered, her voice steady despite the fear churning inside her. Ray smiled, pulling out his phone. He showed her another photo of Emma, this one clearly taken inside a moving vehicle. "Safe for now. I want to speak with her." "Not possible. She's sleeping. Drugged, actually. Makes transport easier." Ray's casual cruelty confirmed what Sarah already knew: these men would show no mercy. "If you harm one hair on her head, you're outnumbered and outgunned, Lieutenant." Ray emphasized her former rank with mocking precision. "Iron Mike knows everything about you. NCIS special agent, deep cover operative, wife of the man who betrayed us." "Jack never betrayed anyone. He was loyal to his country." Sarah took another step forward, calculating distances and angles. 28 minutes until Reynolds' promised assets arrived. She needed to keep Ray talking. "Is that what you tell yourself?" Ray laughed. "Your husband was stealing from us long before he decided to play hero. He took Iron Mike's money, then decided to turn estate's evidence when it suited him." This revelation staggered Sarah. Jack taking bribes. It contradicted everything she knew about her husband. Either Ray was lying to destabilize her, or Jack had secrets even from her. "I don't believe you." Sarah's hand inched closer to the concealed Colt at the small of her back. "Believe what you want. The fact is, Jack took something that belongs to Iron Mike. We want it back." "And then what? You'll release my daughter, return to your motorcycles, and ride off into the sunset?" "We both know that's not happening." Ray's smile disappeared. "You're right about one thing. Iron Mike doesn't leave witnesses. But your daughter might be spared. Raised in our organization, we've done it before with orphans." The thought of Emma in the hands of these criminals crystallized Sarah's resolve. The signal to Doc and Walt would need to come soon. "The drive isn't here," Sarah said, stalling. "It's hidden. I can take you to it, but first I want confirmation my daughter will be released." "No deal." Drive first, then we discuss the girl. Sarah noticed movement in her peripheral vision, subtle but present. At least two Hellfire Ravens members were circling behind her, attempting to flank the cabin. Ray was never negotiating in good faith. He was creating a diversion. 22 minutes until backup arrived. Not enough time. I need Iron Mike's personal guarantee about my daughter, Sarah insisted. Not yours. Ray's patience visibly thinned. You're not in a position to make demands. Neither are you if you want that drive. Sarah locked eyes with him. The files are encrypted. Without the password, they're useless. Only I have it. This wasn't entirely true. Doc was working on breaking the encryption, but the bluff might buy precious minutes. Ray considered this information, then reached for his radio. Boss, we've got a complication. While he was momentarily distracted, Sarah spotted the red laser dot that suddenly appeared on Ray's chest, Doc taking aim from the cabin window. The signal window had arrived. Sarah dropped to the ground as she shouted, "Now!" The cabin plunged into darkness. Shotgun blasts erupted from multiple windows aimed high as instructed. Ray dove for cover, cursing. His hidden compatriots opened fire bullets, splintering wood and shattering glass across the cabin's facade. Using the chaos as cover, Sarah army crawled toward a fallen log 20 feet to her right. Once behind it, she drew the Colt and took careful aim at the nearest biker, visible only by his muzzle flashes. She fired twice, striking his shoulder. He went down with a howl of pain. Inside the cabin, Doc and Walt maintained suppressive fire, forcing the Ravens to keep their distance. The overwhelming force Ray had promised wasn't materializing. He'd brought only 5 men, likely believing it would be sufficient against a woman and 2 older men. Sarah circled left, using the darkness and her Navy training to move silently through the underbrush. She came up behind another Raven, this one trying to work his way toward the cabin's rear entrance. With practiced efficiency, she struck him at the base of the skull with the Colt's grip. He collapsed without a sound. That left Ray and 3 others. 17 minutes until reinforcements. A sudden quiet fell over the clearing. The gunfire ceased, replaced by tense silence. "Sarah," Ray's voice carried from behind a large pine. "This changes nothing. We still have your daughter." "Then you'd better keep her alive," Sarah called back, already moving to a new position. "Because if anything happens to her, I'll destroy the drive and hunt down every last one of you. You're one woman against 200 Ravens. I'm one very motivated mother with a particular set of skills," Sarah replied coldly. "Ask Iron Mike about Operation Kingfisher. Ask him about what happened to the Suarez cartel in Panama." The reference to her most notorious undercover operation created the desired effect. One of the remaining bikers whispered urgently to Ray, audible in the sudden silence. "Boss, she's that ghost, the one who took down 12 cartel enforcers alone." "Shut up," Ray hissed, but his authority was cracking. "Iron Mike said she was out of the game." Sarah seized the psychological advantage. "You think mothers ever stop protecting their children? You have 3 options, Ray. Retreat now and negotiate properly. Die here, or wait 15 minutes for the Navy SEALs currently inbound to this location." This last statement was a calculated exaggeration. Reynolds had promised assets, but Sarah didn't know exactly what kind. The bluff worked. "She's bluffing," Ray insisted to his men, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Check your radio," Sarah suggested. "Notice the interference. Military-grade jammers activated 5 minutes ago. Standard protocol for special operations." In truth, there were no jammers, just the remote Montana location and poor signal. But Ray's frantic attempt to use his radio meeting only static seemed to confirm her claim. "Fall back," Ray finally ordered. "We've got the girl. That's our leverage." Sarah allowed them to retreat, watching as they mounted their motorcycles and disappeared into the night. As their engine noise faded, she hurried back to the cabin. Inside, Walt was pressing a bandage to a fresh wound on his leg, while Doc continued monitoring the windows. "They're pulling back," Sarah reported, "but they still have Emma." "Any truth to those SEALs you mentioned?" Doc asked. "Reynolds is sending someone, due in 12 minutes. Whether they're SEALs or not, I don't know." "You bought us time." Walt winced as Doc checked his new wound. "Bullet just grazed me. I'll live." "Any progress on the drive?" Sarah asked, nodding toward Doc's laptop. "Almost there. The encryption is military grade, but I've seen it before. NCIS used similar protocols for confidential informant files." Sarah checked her weapons and peered outside. The night had returned to silence, but she knew better than to believe the danger had passed. Ray would report to Iron Mike, and their next move would be more calculated, more ruthless. "We have two problems," she said, returning to the table. "They have Emma, and they know we have the drive." "Three problems," Doc corrected. "Iron Mike has resources beyond this local chapter. If he calls in favors, we could be facing professional mercenaries next time, not just bikers. Then we need to work quickly." Sarah laid out a map of the region. Ray mentioned Emma was drugged for transport. "They're taking her somewhere secure, most likely their headquarters at the old paper mill." Walt pointed to the location on the map. Montana paper mill, closed in '92 when environmental regulations changed, isolated, multiple buildings, excellent defensive position. "And about 15 miles from here," Doc added, "accessible by a main road or this old logging trail." His finger traced the alternate route. Sarah studied the map, formulating a plan. "Reynolds' people will be here soon. In the meantime, I need that drive decrypted. It's our only bargaining chip." Doc returned to the laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Almost there." The screen suddenly changed, displaying a file directory. Jack's face appeared in a thumbnail video file. "I've got it," Doc announced triumphantly. Sarah leaned over his shoulder, emotion threatening to overwhelm her at the sight of Jack's face. "Open the video." The file played, showing Jack seated against a plain background. He looked tired but determined. "If you're watching this, Sarah, then something's happened to me." His voice, unheard for 3 years, sent a shock through her system. "What I'm about to tell you is classified beyond top secret. Operation Kingfisher wasn't just about weapons trafficking. We uncovered evidence that Mike Blackwood and his network were selling military intelligence to foreign actors." Jack's revelation continued, detailing how Iron Mike had established connections with hostile foreign intelligence services, trading classified naval deployment information for money. The operation had expanded beyond weapons into full-blown treason. "The evidence is all here," Jack continued. "Accounts, contacts, dates, recordings. Enough to put Mike away for life. But he's protected, Sarah. He has connections in Washington, people who would rather this all disappear." The video ended with Jack looking directly into the camera. "I love you and Emma more than anything. Stay safe, and if you can, finish what I started." Sarah stood motionless, absorbing the implications. This isn't just about revenge or money. This is national security. A noise outside interrupted the moment, the distinctive thump of helicopter rotors approaching. "Reynolds' assets." Sarah moved to the window, watching as a black helicopter descended into the clearing. It bore no markings, but its profile was unmistakably military. 4 figures in tactical gear emerged, moving with the precision of special operators. The leader approached the cabin door, which Sarah opened cautiously. "Ghostbird," the man's voice was crisp, professional. "Condor sent you." He nodded once. "Commander Ellis, Naval, Special Warfare. We have 15 minutes to brief before we move on your daughter's location." The next 14 minutes transformed Doc's cabin into a military command center. Ellis and his team quickly assessed the situation, reviewed the intelligence from Jack's files, and formulated an extraction plan. "The paper mill has 3 main buildings," Ellis indicated on the satellite imagery now displayed on his tablet. "Based on thermal imaging from our flyover, we've got approximately 25 hostiles on site. 1 heat signature consistent with a child in this northern building." "Emma," Sarah breathed. "We'll insert here," Ellis continued, using the helicopter as a diversion on the east side while a ground team approaches from the west. "Primary objective is the child's extraction." "And Iron Mike?" Sarah asked. "Secondary target of opportunity. If we can apprehend him, we will. But your daughter comes first." Sarah checked her weapon again. "I'm going with you." Ellis studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Condor said you'd insist. You'll be with my team, but you follow orders. Clear." "Crystal." Doc stood. "I'm coming too. You'll need a medic." Ellis started to object, but Sarah interrupted. "He's former Special Forces combat experienced. We need him." "Fine, the sheriff stays here, secures the evidence." Ellis glanced at Walt's injuries. "No offense, sir." "None taken, just bring that little girl home." They moved out 3 minutes later, Sarah and Doc equipped with tactical gear from Ellis's team. The helicopter lifted off, deliberately noisy, heading toward the paper mill's eastern approach. Meanwhile, Sarah and the ground team piled into an unmarked SUV, taking the old logging road for a silent approach from the west. As they drove, Sarah's mind filled with memories of Emma, her first steps, her laugh teaching her to ride a bike. The thought of her daughter in the hands of men like Iron Mike and Ray filled her with cold fury, focused and channeled by years of training. 5 minutes out, Ellis announced from the front seat. Comms check. Each team member confirmed their radios, Sarah and Doc included. The plan was straightforward but dangerous. The helicopter would create a diversion, drawing attention to the eastern side of the compound. Meanwhile, the ground team would breach the northern building, locate Emma and extract her, while the Hellfire Ravens were distracted. Remember, Ellis cautioned, these aren't just bikers. According to your intel, Iron Mike has military training and likely trained his inner circle. Expect professional resistance. The SUV stopped a half-mile from the objective, concealed in dense forest. The team proceeded on foot, moving silently through the trees. Sarah's Navy training returned fully now, each step careful and deliberate, her senses heightened. Through night vision goggles, the paper mill complex came into view, a sprawling industrial ghost town. The main manufacturing building loomed largest, its broken windows like empty eye sockets in the darkness. To the north stood a smaller administrative building, their target. Security lights illuminated the compound perimeter, where armed men patrolled in pairs. The distant thump of the helicopter grew louder, right on schedule. Ravens members began moving toward the sound, shouting orders and readying weapons. Now, Ellis whispered. The team moved forward in practice formation. Sarah and Doc stayed in the middle, protected by operators on all sides. They reached the northern building's rear entrance. Without detection, the helicopter's noisy circles over the main building, providing perfect cover. One of Ellis's men made quick work of the door lock. They entered a dark hallway, night vision, revealing decades of abandonment, peeling paint, broken furniture, rodent droppings. Heat signature, 30 meters ahead, an operator whispered, checking a handheld thermal device. Single occupant, small profile, consistent with a child. Sarah's heart pounded. Emma. 2 hostiles guarding the door, the point man reported, armed with assault rifles, professional stance. Ellis signaled the team to halt, then used hand signals to outline the takedown. 2 operators would move ahead and neutralize the guards simultaneously. The rest would follow and secure Emma. Sarah watched the 2 men glide forward, moving like ghosts in the darkness. They reached positions on either side of the hallway intersection, exchanged a silent count, then struck with devastating efficiency. Both guards were subdued before they could make a sound, zip ties securing their wrists and ankles while duct tape covered their mouths. Clear, came the whispered confirmation. The team advanced to a door at the corridor's end. The thermal scanner confirmed a single occupant inside. Stand back, Ellis ordered, as his breacher prepared to force the door. Wait, Sarah said suddenly. If Emma's drugged, she'll be terrified if we burst in like this. She removed her night vision goggles. Let me go first, gently. Ellis hesitated, then nodded. The breacher picked the lock instead of forcing it, and the door swung open silently. Inside, illuminated by a single bare bulb, Emma lay on a small cot. Her eyes were closed, her breathing steady. Sarah rushed to her side, checking her pulse and pupils. Sedated but stable, she whispered, to relief flooding her system. Emma, baby, it's Mom. The little girl's eyelids fluttered but didn't open fully. She murmured something incoherent. Doc, Sarah called softly. The medic moved forward, checking Emma's condition with practiced efficiency. Mild sedative. She'll be groggy but fine. No signs of physical harm. Sarah gathered her daughter into her arms, holding her close. I've got you, baby. You're safe now. Emma stirred slightly, nestling against her mother's familiar warmth, even in her drugged state. We need to move, Ellis urged. The diversion won't last much longer. Sarah nodded, lifting Emma. Let's go. They retraced their steps through the darkened hallway, moving swiftly but carefully. The helicopter continued its noisy circles overhead, keeping most of the Ravens distracted. They reached the rear exit without incident, slipping back into the forest, concealing darkness. Mockingbird, this is Badger, Ellis spoke into his radio using the helicopter's call sign. Package secure. Execute Phase 2. The helicopter's flight pattern changed immediately, moving to hover directly over the main building. Powerful searchlights activated, illuminating the compound in harsh white light. A voice boomed from a loudspeaker. This is the FBI. The compound is surrounded. Lay down your weapons immediately. It was a bluff. There was no FBI presence, but it created the desired chaos. Ravens members scattered in confusion, some firing wildly at the helicopter, others running for their motorcycles. Keep moving, Ellis ordered his ground team. Extraction point in 3 minutes. They hurried through the forest, Sarah carrying Emma with Doc close beside them, monitoring her condition. The sounds of confusion from the paper mill faded behind them as they approached the waiting SUV. Suddenly, a voice called from the darkness. Lieutenant Reeves. The team froze, weapons instantly raised toward the sound. A figure stepped from behind a large pine, hands raised non-threateningly. Iron Mike Blackwood. Hold fire, Ellis ordered, though his own weapon remained trained on the biker leader. Sarah tightened her grip on Emma, hatred coursing through her veins. How did you know we'd come this way? Iron Mike smiled grimly. Because it's what I would have done. The helicopter was obvious misdirection. You're surrounded, Blackwood, Ellis stated flatly. Surrender now. Am I? Iron Mike seemed unconcerned. Your little operation is impressive but limited. 4 operators, a helicopter crew, and 2 amateurs against my entire organization. We have the USB drive, Sarah said. Jack's evidence about your treason is already being transmitted to multiple federal agencies. Something flickered in Iron Mike's eyes, the first hint of genuine concern. Jack always was thorough. Why? Sarah demanded. You were a SEAL. You took an oath. So did the government. Iron Mike's voice hardened. I gave everything for this country. Lost my health, my family, watched my brothers die. And for what to be discarded when I was no longer useful. The politicians and bureaucrats betrayed us first, Lieutenant. That doesn't justify selling out your country. Iron Mike shrugged. Perhaps not, but it does explain it. His gaze shifted to Emma. The girl okay? The question, surprisingly genuine, caught Sarah off guard. She's fine. Good. Children should be left out of these matters. That was Ray's call, not mine. Ellis's patience ended. Enough talk. On your knees, hands behind your head. Iron Mike complied with surprising dignity. As Ellis moved to restrain him, the biker leader looked directly at Sarah. Jack's alive. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? Your husband is alive. He's been held by the same people I've been working with. Russian intelligence. He's in a facility in Alaska. Why are you telling me this? Iron Mike smiled thinly. Insurance. The Russians have a dead man's switch. If I'm arrested, certain information gets released. Information that will make me look like a patriot and put a lot of intelligence officials in prison. I'm offering you a trade, Jack's location, for my freedom. Ellis finished securing the restraints. That's not happening. Then Jack dies. Iron Mike said simply. Your choice, Lieutenant. Sarah stood frozen, Emma's weight in her arms suddenly heavier. The possibility that Jack was alive after all these years warred with her duty and the knowledge of Iron Mike's crimes. You're lying, she finally said, though uncertainty colored her voice. Am I? Ask yourself why no body was ever recovered from that explosion. Why the DNA evidence was so conveniently discovered. Jack didn't turn on me, Lieutenant. We were both set up by people much higher up the chain, people who didn't want certain operations exposed. Ellis interrupted. We need to move. Now. The distant sound of motorcycles reinforced his urgency. The Ravens had realized the FBI announcement was a bluff and were reorganizing. Sarah made her decision. You're coming with us, Iron Mike. If Jack is alive, you'll help us find him, but you're facing justice either way. Iron Mike's expression didn't change. The men who have your husband will kill him the moment they learn I'm in custody. Then we'll make sure they don't learn that. Sarah turned to Ellis. We take him, but keep his capture completely off the books for now. Ellis hesitated, then nodded. That's above my pay grade, but I'll pass it up the chain. Let's move. They reached the SUV moments later. Iron Mike secure between 2 operators in the back seat. Sarah sat in the middle row, Emma still unconscious in her arms, Doc continuing to monitor her vitals. As they drove away from the paper mill, Sarah gazed down at her daughter's peaceful face, relief mingling with renewed determination. If Jack was truly alive, she would find him, and anyone who stood in her way would discover why she had once been called the Ghost. The SUV reached Doc's cabin 20 minutes later. Sheriff Garrison met them at the door, his service revolver drawn until he confirmed it was them. Emma, he asked immediately. Safe? Sarah confirmed, carrying her still groggy daughter inside. sedated but unharmed. Walt's eyes narrowed when he saw Iron Mike being escorted in by Ellis's men. "What's he doing here?" "Insurance," Sarah explained briefly. "And information." Doc took charge of Emma, laying her on the sofa and continuing his medical assessment. "The sedative is wearing off. She'll be fully conscious in an hour or so, maybe with a headache, but otherwise fine." Sarah nodded gratefully, then turned to Iron Mike, now seated and still restrained at the kitchen table. Ellis positioned his men at strategic points throughout the cabin, maintaining security while Captain Reynolds was consulted via satellite phone. "Start talking," Sarah demanded. "Everything about Jack, where he's being held, by whom, for how long." Iron Mike's demeanor had changed subtly since his capture, less the intimidating biker leader, more the calculating intelligence operative he had once been. 3 years ago, Jack wasn't killed in that car bomb. He was captured by a Russian SVR team working with elements inside our own intelligence community. The explosion was staged, the DNA planted. Why, Sarah pressed. Jack had discovered something beyond my weapons sales. Operation Kingfisher went deeper than anyone realized. There was a mole in naval intelligence, someone feeding information to the Russians for decades. Jack identified him. "Who?" Iron Mike smiled thinly. "Admiral Robert Kelso." The name hit Sarah like a thunderbolt. Admiral Kelso had been their commanding officer during the Panama operation, later promoted to the naval intelligence leadership. He had attended Jack's funeral, consoled Sarah personally. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" "Think, Lieutenant. Who authorized Operation Kingfisher, who limited its scope, who declared it complete when Jack wanted to pursue additional leads, who confirmed Jack's death without a body?" Each question landed like a hammer blow, forcing Sarah to reconsider events she had accepted years ago. "Kelso was the one who identified you as my target," Iron Mike continued. "He manipulated us both. When Jack discovered the truth, Kelso couldn't risk eliminating him directly. Too many questions, so he handed Jack to his Russian contacts and staged his death." "And where do you fit in all this?" Walt asked from across the room. "I was already working with the Russians, selling them weapons intelligence. Small stuff initially, then bigger. Kelso approached me after Jack's death, made it clear that he knew about my activities and could protect me if I helped him occasionally." Ellis, who had been listening while maintaining security, spoke up. "If this is true, it's the biggest intelligence breach since Aldrich Ames." "Bigger," Iron Mike stated flatly. "Kelso has had access to everything: fleet deployments, nuclear, submarine movements, special operations planning. The Russians have been one step ahead of us for years." Sarah's tactical mind was already shifting, processing implications. "And Jack has been held all this time. Why keep him alive?" "Insurance initially, then leverage over Kelso. The Russians are pragmatic. They keep assets that might prove useful." "Where exactly is he being held?" "A research station in the Aleutian Islands. Ostensibly American, actually a Russian intelligence facility operating under deep cover. Minimal staff, heavy security." Ellis's satellite phone buzzed. He answered, listened briefly, then addressed the room. "Captain Reynolds has confirmed parts of Blackwood's story. Naval intelligence has had suspicions about Kelso for months, but no proof. This could break the case open." Hope surged through Sarah, real tangible hope that Jack might truly be alive. But experience tempered her optimism. "This could also be an elaborate trap," she noted. Iron Mike shrugged, the gesture awkward with his hands still restrained. "Why would I bother? I'm already captured. The USB drive is already compromised. What would I gain by lying now?" "Revenge," Sarah suggested, "or creating division in our ranks. Think what you want. But Jack is alive, and every hour we sit here debating is another hour he remains in captivity." Iron Mike leaned forward. "I've told you what I know as a show of good faith. Now it's time to discuss terms." "You're in no position to negotiate," Ellis stated. "Aren't I? I know details about the facility that aren't in any database. Security protocols, personnel rotations, access codes. Without me, any rescue attempt would fail and alert Kelso that his cover is blown." Sarah studied the man who had once been her husband's teammate, then his enemy, and now potentially his salvation. Years of intelligence work had taught her to recognize when someone was telling the truth, or at least their version of it. Iron Mike believed what he was saying. Whether it was actually true remained to be seen. "We verify what we can," she decided. "Then we plan a rescue operation." with or without your help. Iron Mike settled back in his chair. You'll need me, and I'll help on one condition. Name it, Sarah said, though she already suspected what it would be. Immunity, full and complete, for all my activities. Ellis shook his head. No deal. You've committed treason. So has Admiral Kelso, Iron Mike countered, and he's sacrificed American lives to protect his position. I've just sold information. Which is worse. Both are unacceptable, Sarah interjected. But finding Jack and exposing Kelso take priority right now. A small sound from the sofa drew everyone's attention. Emma was stirring, her eyes fluttering open. Mommy. The child's voice was drowsy but clear. Sarah was at her side, instantly gathering her daughter into her arms. I'm here, baby. You're safe now. Omanon looked around in confusion, taking in the unfamiliar cabin and the tense faces watching her. What happened? Where are we? We're at Doc's cabin, Sarah explained gently. You were asleep for a while, but everything's okay now. Emma's gaze landed on Iron Mike, still restrained at the table. Fear flickered across her young face. Is he one of the bad men? The question hung in the air, its simplicity cutting through the moral complexity of the situation. In a child's black and white world, there were good guys and bad guys, heroes and villains. The reality that Iron Mike was both villain and potential ally, that Admiral Kelso was both respected leader and traitor, was too nuanced for an 8-year-old to grasp. He's helping us find Daddy, Sarah said finally, the words feeling strange on her tongue after 3 years of telling Emma her father was dead. Emma's eyes widened. Daddy, but you said... I know, sweetheart. And I'm sorry. I thought Daddy was gone, but there's a chance, just a chance, that he might be alive. The hope that bloomed on Emma's face was both beautiful and heartbreaking. Sarah knew they might still discover Iron Mike was lying, that Jack truly was dead. But in this moment, the possibility of reuniting her family drove Sarah forward with renewed determination. She turned back to Iron Mike, decision made. We move forward with verification. If your information checks out, I'll personally advocate for leniency, not immunity. Iron Mike considered this. Acceptable, assuming we recover Jack alive. That's the priority, Sarah agreed. She looked to Ellis. We need secure communications with Captain Reynolds and a direct line to someone above Kelso's pay grade. Elsie wanted. My team can establish a secure uplink through the helicopter systems. We can reach naval intelligence directly, bypassing the normal chain of command. The next hour transformed Doc's remote cabin into an impromptu intelligence center. While Doc tended to Emma brewing hot chocolate and distracting her with old board games found in a closet, the adults worked with grim focus. Iron Mike provided details about the Aleutian facility layout, security personnel, which Ellis's team transmitted to naval intelligence for verification. Sarah kept one eye on Emma, throughout the other on the unfolding operation. The emotional whiplash of the past 24 hours, from diner owner to special operative, from grieving widow to wife with renewed hope, had taken its toll. But the training and discipline ingrained through years of service carried her forward. Initial satellite reconnaissance confirms the facility exists, Ellis reported after receiving an update. Heat signatures and power consumption consistent with Blackwood's description. And Kelso? Sarah asked. Naval intelligence has placed him under discreet surveillance. He's currently at the Pentagon, unaware of our operation. Iron Mike, now with his hands freed but still under guard, pointed to the map spread across the table. The challenge isn't getting to the island. It's breaching the facility without triggering their protocols. If they detect a rescue attempt, Jack will be eliminated immediately. Then we need a Trojan horse, Sarah mused. A way in that doesn't look like a threat. Iron Mike nodded slowly. I might have just the thing. The Russians are expecting a delivery in 3 days. Medical supplies and equipment. It's a regular shipment handled by a civilian contractor who doesn't ask questions. Can we intercept and replace the shipment? Ellis asked. Better. I can call my contact, tell them I'm sending additional items that require special handling. Items that would arrive in sealed containers. Containers large enough for operators. Sarah understood immediately. Exactly. The contractor's a mercenary named Vasquez. Not ideological, just greedy. For the right price, he'll cooperate without alerting his employers. Ellis looked skeptical. That's a lot of trust to place in a mercenary. I've worked with him for years, Iron Mike insisted. He knows if he betrays me, he's a dead man no matter where he hides. Sarah studied the satellite imagery of the facility that Ellis's team had acquired. The compound was indeed, as Iron Mike described, isolated, well secured with minimal personnel. A direct assault would be detected immediately. The Trojan horse approach might be their only option. We need more than just entry, she pointed out. We need a complete extraction plan. The nearest friendly forces are hours away by air. Iron Mike tapped the map. There's a secondary airfield here used for supply runs. Small planes only, but adequate for extraction. I know the security protocols. The planning continued deep into the night, growing more detailed with each passing hour. Naval intelligence provided confirmation of key elements in Iron Mike's story, lending credibility to his claims. By dawn, a preliminary rescue plan had taken shape, daring but feasible. Sarah finally took a break, exhausted but driven by purpose. She found Emma asleep on the sofa, Doc dozing in a nearby chair, keeping watch. The sight of her daughter's safe brought a rush of emotion she had been suppressing during the operational planning. She knelt beside Emma, gently brushing hair from her forehead. The thought that Jack might truly be alive, that their family might be reunited, seemed simultaneously miraculous and terrifying. What if it was all an elaborate deception? What if they found Jack, but he was no longer the man she remembered? What if they failed and she lost him a second time? You should rest, Walt suggested quietly, appearing beside her with a cup of coffee. Been a hell of a day. Sarah accepted the coffee gratefully. If there's even a chance Jack's alive. I know. Walt settled into a chair with a grimace, his injuries clearly paining him. For what it's worth, I believe Blackwood about this. Not because he's trustworthy, but because the story makes sense. Too many things never added up about Jack's death. Why didn't you ever say anything? Walt sighed heavily. What good would it have done? I had suspicions, not proof. You were rebuilding your life, raising Emma. Opening old wounds seemed cruel without something concrete to offer. Sarah nodded, understanding his reasoning, even as part of her wished he had shared his doubts sooner. What happens after? She asked. If we get Jack back, expose Kelso. What then? Back to Montana, back to the diner. Walt studied her for a moment. Could you, after all this, the Sarah Miller I've come to know these past years, she's been playing a role you've grown comfortable with, maybe even come to love in some ways. But this, he gestured toward the operational planning in the kitchen, this is who you really are. The observation struck Sarah deeply because it contained a fundamental truth. The quiet life in Eagle Ridge had been a refuge, not a true home. She had adapted, created a new identity, found genuine joy in raising Emma, in building a community. But the woman who had methodically tracked Ray through the forest, who had formulated tactical plans with Ellis's team, who had maintained her shooting skills all these years, that was the core of Sarah Reeves. One crisis at a time, she finally replied. First Jack, then Kelso, then we'll see. The cabin door opened, admitting Ellis. His expression was grim but determined. We've got confirmation, he announced. Naval intelligence intercepted communications from the Aleutian facility. They reference a packaged whiskey, their code for high-value intelligence assets. Jack? Sarah asked, hope rising. Ellis nodded. The intercept included a medical report. Blood type and general physical description match your husband's. It's him, Sarah. Jack's alive. Sarah watched from the unmarked cargo plane's window. As the Aleutian Islands emerged through breaks in the clouds, a jagged archipelago of volcanic stone shrouded in perpetual fog. Somewhere on that forbidding landscape, Jack had been held prisoner for 3 years, while she believed him dead. The knowledge burned in her chest. Every minute of separation now felt unbearable after learning the truth. She checked her tactical gear, for the third time, old habits resurfacing with practiced efficiency. 10 minutes to drop point. The pilot's voice crackled through her headset. Ellis, commander of the extraction team, reviewed their mission parameters one final time. Halo insertion, 2-mile hike to rendezvous with Vasquez, infiltrate via medical delivery, locate the asset, extract via a secondary airfield. Clean and simple. Nothing about this mission was simple, but Sarah appreciated his confidence. The operation had come together with remarkable speed, 48 hours from conception to execution, bypassing Admiral Kelso's authority through a classified protocol for suspected internal threats. Beside her sat Iron Mike Blackwood, similarly equipped, but with his hands secured by specialized restraints. At 65, His weathered face showed the toll of years, but his eyes remained unnervingly sharp. The silver beard couldn't hide the hardness in his jaw or the calculation in his gaze. "Having second thoughts, Lieutenant," he asked, noticing her scrutiny. "About rescuing my husband, never." Sarah's voice was steel. "About trusting you every second." Iron Mike's lip curled. 3 years as a diner owner hasn't dulled your edge. Sarah ignored him, focusing instead on the mission ahead. If Jack truly was alive, nothing would stop her from bringing him home to Emma. The promise she'd made to her daughter before leaving Montana echoed in her mind. "I'm bringing Daddy home." The jump light switched from red to green. Ellis gave the signal and the cargo ramp lowered, revealing a churning void of clouds and distant ocean. The roar of wind filled the aircraft as temperatures plummeted. "See you on the ground," Ellis shouted above the noise before stepping into empty space. Sarah and Iron Mike jumped simultaneously, their restraints linked to prevent any attempted escape. The free fall was both terrifying and exhilarating, a sensory overload Sarah hadn't experienced in years. Wind tore at her face as she tracked altitude-monitored oxygen levels and maintained formation with the team. Their chutes deployed in synchronized sequence. The team steered toward the landing zone, a small clearing 2 miles from the facility's perimeter. When Sarah's boots touched the volcanic soil, a muscle memory took over. She collapsed her chute with practiced movements, securing all evidence of their arrival. The Aleutian landscape spread around them, primordial and unforgiving. Wind carried the scent of sea salt and sulfur. In the distance, white-capped waves battered the shoreline with relentless force. "Comms check." Ellis's voice came through Sarah's earpiece as the team regrouped. Each member confirmed operational status. Their insertion had gone undetected. "Vasquez should be at the rendezvous point in 30 minutes. Iron Mike reported, checking his specialized GPS unit. They moved out in tactical formation, maintaining noise and visual discipline despite challenging conditions. As they crested a ridge, the facility came into view below a collection of prefabricated buildings surrounded by a security fence with guard towers at regular intervals. From this distance, it appeared to be exactly what its cover suggested, a legitimate research station with heightened security measures. "Counting 8 at perimeter guards," Chen, the intelligence specialist, whispered after studying the compound through high-powered binoculars. "Movement pattern consistent with the intelligence." "The real security is electronic," Iron Mike noted. "Motion sensors, thermal detection, surveillance cameras." At the rendezvous point, a natural depression, sheltered from wind and observation, they waited in defensive formation. At precisely the appointed time, a figure appeared on the eastern ridge. Miguel Vasquez descended toward their position with the confident movements of someone familiar with the terrain. The Chilean mercenary wore the uniform of the supply company that serviced the research station. His hawk-like features constantly evaluated risk and reward as he surveyed the team. "Payment confirmed?" he asked without preamble. Ellis nodded. "Half transferred. Remainder upon extraction." Vasquez handed over a small electronic device. "Security protocols changed last week. New frequency for perimeter sensors." Chen examined it. "Legitimate, Russian military grade." "My truck is 1 kilometer east," Vasquez continued. 4 sealed containers as requested, documentation in order. Once inside, you'll have 20 minutes before the containers are moved to storage." The plan proceeded with clockwork precision. The team concealed themselves in the delivery containers, modified refrigerated medical supply units. Sarah found herself in the cramped space beside Iron Mike, his restraints temporarily adjusted for the confined quarters. "Last time I was in a box this size was Panama," he murmured as the truck engine started. "Funny how life circles back." Sarah ignored the bait, focusing instead on controlling her breathing and keeping her mind clear. The truck stopped twice, once at the security checkpoint, where guards performed a cursory inspection, and again when they reached their destination inside the facility. "Clear," Vasquez's voice came through their comms after the handlers departed. "Medical storage. You have 18 minutes before inventory personnel arrive." The containers opened simultaneously. They emerged in a climate-controlled storage room filled with shelves of medical supplies. Chen immediately bypassed the electronic door lock, while Ellis instructed Vasquez to maintain his cover identity and meet them at the extraction point in 90 minutes. "According to intel," Ellis whispered as they entered the corridor, "high-value detainees are kept in the subterranean level. Access via service elevator at the end of this hall. They advanced in tactical formation. The facility's interior was mundane standard government-issue furnishings, beige walls, fluorescent lighting. Nothing to suggest its true purpose as a foreign intelligence black site. Two personnel approaching, Chen warned, monitoring a thermal scanner. The team pressed against the walls, finding concealment in a recessed doorway. Two lab-coated scientists passed, discussing weather patterns and supply schedules, maintaining the research station cover story, unaware of the facility's darker purpose. At the service elevator, Chen bypassed the security card reader and accessed the control panel, revealing a hidden button sequence for the subterranean level. Confirm sequence, Ellis ordered Iron Mike. Green, red, green, blue, hold yellow, 3 seconds. Chen input the sequence. The elevator descended, the digital floor indicator disappearing as they passed below the officially documented levels. Weapons ready, Ellis commanded as the elevator slowed. Unknown hostiles beyond. The doors opened to reveal a stark contrast to the floors above, a hardened security corridor with reinforced doors and a guard station directly ahead. Two guards in unmarked black uniforms reacted with confusion, then alarm. Before they could reach for weapons, Ellis and his team executed a perfect coordinated takedown. Silent, efficient, lethal. Chen moved to the guard station console. Localized surveillance disabled. But we've got a problem, automated check-in protocol. Guards must report status every 5 minutes or the system triggers lockdown. How long until next check-in? 3 minutes, 18 seconds. Move fast, Ellis decided. Blackwood Witch Detention Cell. Iron Mike studied the security station schematics. Cell 4, East Corridor, third door. The team advanced with practiced urgency. At Cell 4, Sarah peered through the small observation window and felt her heart stop. Jack sat on a narrow bed, gaunt and bearded but unmistakably alive. His once muscular frame had thinned considerably, and new scars marked his visible skin. But his eyes, those remained unchanged, carrying the quiet intensity she remembered. "It's him," she whispered, emotions threatening to break through her professional discipline. Chen bypassed the cell lock. Jack looked up as the heavy door swung open, his expression shifting from resignation to disbelief to desperate hope. "Sarah," his voice was raspy, "real or another trick?" Sarah holstered her weapon and stepped forward. "It's me, Jack. We're getting you out." His eyes darted to the others, widening when he recognized Iron Mike. "Blackwood, what?" "Explanations later," Elvis interrupted, less than 2 minutes before security protocols trigger. Jack stood shakily, clearly weakened by his long captivity, but determination supplying strength. Sarah moved to his side, supporting him with an arm around his waist. The physical contact made reality crash over her. Jack was alive, solid beneath her touch, breathing and warm. "Extraction route," Jack asked, military training asserting itself despite his condition. "Secondary airfield," Ellis replied. 2 kilometers north. "Won't work." Jack shook his head. "They changed protocols last month. Airfield has additional security now connected to main facility systems." The team exchanged alarmed glances. This contradicted Iron Mike's intelligence. "He's right," Iron Mike admitted, surprising everyone. "Russians compartmentalize information. I knew about the facility, not the recent changes." "Alternate extraction," Ellis demanded. Jack straightened, years of imprisonment falling away as operational focus returned. "Coastal access point, east side, maintenance dock for research vessels. Vessels present. 1 small boat used for water sampling, basic but seaworthy. Chen time, 47 seconds to check in." Ellis made the decision. Change of plan, extract via water. Chen delay the check-in. The intelligence specialist returned to the guard console. "I can loop the previous check-in once. Buys us maybe 10 minutes. As Chen worked, Sarah kept her arm around Jack, afraid he might disappear if she broke contact. 3 years, she whispered. "They told me you were dead. DNA evidence. Samples taken during interrogation." Jack replied, his voice strengthening. "They needed me alive, but officially dead. We know about Kelso. Your evidence." "Got it," Chen announced. "Clock's ticking." They moved out, Jack setting the pace despite his weakened condition. His intimate knowledge of the facility gained through 3 years of captivity proved invaluable as he guided them through service corridors and maintenance tunnels. 2 levels up, then east through the desalination plant. Jack directed. Maintenance dock beyond. Iron Mike studied Jack with undisguised curiosity. 3 years here and you're still walking. Impressive. Motivation, Jack replied simply, his eyes meeting Sarah's. The unspoken message was clear. Thoughts of her and Emma had sustained him through his ordeal. They reached a service stairwell and ascended quickly, Jack's breathing becoming labored, but his pace never faltering. At the upper level, he led them through a maze of pipes and filtration equipment to a reinforced door. Maintenance dock through there. Should be minimal security, one guard typically. Ellis signaled for defensive positions as Chen bypassed the electronic lock. The door opened to reveal a covered dock extending into the churning ocean. A small research vessel was moored alongside, but there was no guard. Something's wrong, Sarah whispered, instincts flaring. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed the dock in crimson illumination. We've been made, Ellis snapped. Chen. Not from our end. Something else triggered the alert. All eyes turned to Iron Mike. His expression remained impassive. Not me. I want out of here as badly as you do. The boat, Jack urged. Now, before they lock down the exterior hatches. They moved quickly toward the research vessel. Ellis and his team provided covering fire as Sarah helped Jack aboard. Chen went directly to the controls, starting the engines with professional efficiency. The dock door burst open. Armed security personnel poured through. Ellis and his operators returned fire, creating a defensive perimeter while the boat preparations continued. Cast off, Chen shouted above the gunfire. Sarah severed the mooring ropes with her combat knife. The vessel immediately began drifting from the dock, pulled by the natural current. Chen engaged the engine's propellers, churning dark water into white foam. Iron Mike, positioned near the stern, suddenly stiffened. Sarah followed his gaze to see a figure emerge onto the dock, distinct from the security personnel. Admiral Robert Kelso, immaculate in his naval uniform, surveyed the scene with cold calculation. Blackwood, Kelso called across the widening gap. Remember our arrangement? Iron Mike's expression darkened. For a tense moment, Sarah feared he might attempt something desperate. Instead, he turned deliberately toward Kelso. The arrangement's over, Robert. His voice carried with surprising clarity. Game's changed. Kelso's face contorted with fury. He grabbed a weapon from the nearest security officer and opened fire directly at Iron Mike. Several bullets found their mark. Iron Mike stumbled backward, blood blooming across his tactical vest. Sarah moved instinctively to provide aid, but Iron Mike waved her away. Get clear of the dock, he gasped. They'll have anti-vessel measures. A mounted weapon on the dock began rotating toward them. Ellis recognized the threat immediately. Heavy machine gun, Chen full power. The boat surged forward as Chen pushed the engines to maximum. Bullets strafed the water around them, some impacting the hull. The distance increased rapidly, the facility's dock shrinking behind them as they entered the open channel. Sarah crouched beside Iron Mike, assessing his wounds. Despite her complicated feelings toward the man, her medical training took precedence. 3 gunshot wounds to the torso, at least one potentially fatal, without immediate intervention. Stay with me, Blackwood, she ordered, applying pressure to the most critical wound. Jack appeared beside them, his weakness momentarily forgotten as he helped stabilize his former teammate and subsequent enemy. Why Mike? He asked quietly. After everything we stood for, Iron Mike's breathing grew labored. Started small, just weapons intelligence, nothing that would cost American lives. He coughed, blood speckling his lips. Then Kelso approached me, knew what I was doing, offered protection in exchange for bigger information. You could have refused. By then I was compromised. No way back. His eyes locked with the Jack's. You were always the better man, Reeves. The one who could resist temptation. The boat cleared the coastal waters, entering open ocean. Behind them, the facility was now just a distant silhouette. No pursuit had materialized yet, but it would come. Extraction coordinates, Ellis asked, joining them at the stern. 30 miles northeast, Chen reported. Navy vessel waiting beyond territorial waters. Sarah continued treating Iron Mike's wounds, establishing a makeshift IV from the boat's emergency medical kit. The injuries were severe, but not immediately fatal with proper care. Jack knelt beside her, his presence both familiar and strange after 3 years of absence. Emma, he asked simply. Safe, in Montana with Doc and Walt. Sarah's voice softened. She's beautiful, Jack. Strong. Brilliant. Has your stubborn streak. A complex mixture of emotions crossed Jack's face, joy, grief for lost time, determination. I never stopped looking for ways to get word out, he said. Every day I searched for opportunities. Kelso's control was absolute, Iron Mike interjected weakly. Managed everything personally. The boat crested a particularly large wave, sending spray across the deck. The Aleutian weather was deteriorating, visibility reducing as fog rolled in from the north. Contact bearing 310, Ellis announced suddenly. Fast-moving vessel, military profile. Raptor-class patrol boat, Jack confirmed. Faster than this vessel. Sarah secured the bandages on Iron Mike's wounds and moved to the control area. Options. Chen studied the navigation display. We're still 22 miles from extraction coordinates. At current speed, we'll reach the Navy vessel in approximately 40 minutes. And the patrol boat will intercept in 20. Ellis assessed their tactical situation. We need to reduce their speed advantage. Jack pointed to the nautical chart. These waters are treacherous underwater formations, hidden reefs. Local knowledge is essential for safe navigation at speed. Sarah studied the chart, an idea forming. What about here? She indicated a narrow passage between two small islands. If we thread this channel, they'd have to slow down or go around. Risky, Chen warned. Very shallow in sections. We could run aground. If it gives us an advantage, we take the risk, Ellis ordered. Chen altered course, steering for the narrow channel. Behind them, the pursuing patrol boat grew larger, its superior speed closing the gap rapidly. They're armed, Jack observed. Heavy weapons on the foredeck. Just getting in range, Ellis confirmed. A sudden explosion of water 30 yards to their starboard signaled the beginning of the patrol boat's attack, ranging shots from its bow-mounted weapon. Taking fire, Ellis shouted. Chen evasive maneuvers. The research vessel responded sluggishly, lacking the maneuverability of a proper military craft. Another shell landed closer, the concussion rocking the boat violently. Channel entrance 200 yards ahead, Chen reported. It's going to be tight. Sarah braced herself against the bulkhead, securing Iron Mike's position to prevent further injury. Jack moved beside her, his body shielding them both instinctively, despite his weakened condition. The boat slowed as they approached the channel, barely wider than their vessel. Chen navigated with intense concentration, aware that the slightest error would ground them on the volcanic formations beneath the surface. The patrol boat continued its approach, but reduced speed as it recognized the tactical situation. Rather than risking the treacherous passage, it intensified fire, attempting to disable them before they entered the channel. They're targeting our engines, Ellis called. Chen, keep us moving. The research vessel entered the narrow passage, stone walls rising on both sides. The water churned with hidden currents and swirling eddies. Chen compensated masterfully, using the boat's momentum to navigate where engine power alone would have failed. The patrol boat, forced to cease direct pursuit, continued firing into the channel. One shot found its mark on their stern. The engine compartment erupted in flames. Fire control, Ellis ordered, moving with a extinguisher from the emergency locker. Losing power, Chen reported, as the engine sputtered. We'll have to drift through. The current caught their damaged vessel, pulling it deeper into the channel at increasing speed. Without engine control, they were at the mercy of the waterway. Chen fought the wheel, using what little rudder response remained to avoid the worst obstacles. The boat scraped against stone with a horrific screeching of metal. They continued forward, each collision threatening to end their journey permanently. Then, as suddenly as they had entered, they emerged from the channel's far side into open water. The immediate danger of rock walls receded, but their situation remained critical. Engines damaged, hull compromised, still miles from extraction. Status, Ellis demanded. Engines at 30% capacity, Chen reported. Taking on water, but pumps are managing. We're still moving. Contact the Navy vessel. Request immediate approach to our position. Sarah continued monitoring Iron Mike, whose condition was deteriorating despite her best efforts. Jack, Iron Mike whispered, his voice barely audible. Need to tell you about Kingfisher. Jack leaned closer. I know about Kelso. We have your drive. Not everything. Iron Mike's breathing grew more labored. Deeper conspiracy, beyond Kelso. Network within Pentagon, CIA, State Department. He gripped Jack's arm with surprising strength. Consortium of officials selling intelligence, not just to Russians, multiple foreign actors. This revelation sent a chill through Sarah. If true, it meant exposing Kelso would only scratch the surface of a much larger threat. Names, Jack pressed. In my head, never committed to writing. Too dangerous. Contact on horizon, Ellis announced. Large vessel approaching from northeast. All eyes turned toward the distant shape materializing through the fog, the unmistakable silhouette of a Navy destroyer. It's the extraction vessel, Chen confirmed, relief evident in his voice. They've diverted to our position. Hope surged through the team, but their ordeal wasn't over yet. Second contact bearing 185, Ellis warned. The patrol boat has cleared the islands. The Russian vessel had navigated around the island chain and was now bearing down on them with renewed determination. Despite the presence of the American destroyer, they showed no signs of abandoning pursuit. They're going to try to sink us before the Navy can intervene, Jack realized. Destroy the evidence, all of us, and claim jurisdictional violation when questioned later. Chen, everything you have got from those engines. Chen pushed the damaged propulsion system to its limits. The boat lurched forward, smoke pouring from the engine compartment. They gained speed, but the patrol boat closed more rapidly. More accurate fire this time, Ellis reported, as water erupted nearby. The destroyer, now clearly visible, began signaling with light communications. They had been spotted and recognized as the extraction target. The destroyer can't fire on the patrol boat, Jack explained, not without creating an international incident. A shell impacted directly behind their stern, the concussion nearly capsizing their vessel. Water poured through new breaches in the hull, the pumps overwhelmed. We're sinking, Chen announced with professional calm. 2 minutes maximum. Abandon ship, Ellis ordered. Prepare for water evacuation. The team deployed the emergency life raft, preparing Iron Mike for transport despite his critical condition. The destroyer had launched a rigid-hulled inflatable boat or HIB to assist, but it would take precious minutes to reach them. One more direct hit, and we're done, Jack observed if another shell landed nearby. The research vessel listed severely as water flooded the engine compartment. The team loaded into the life raft, Ellis and his men providing covering fire toward the patrol boat. As they pushed away from the sinking vessel, the patrol boat closed to optimal firing range. They were moments from devastating fire with nowhere to hide. Then the destroyer's horn blasted across the water, a sound of such power it momentarily froze all action. The massive warship altered course slightly, deliberately, placing itself between the life raft and the patrol boat, not firing but making its protective intentions unmistakable. The Russian vessel hesitated, then began to turn away. Even the most determined captain understood the futility of engaging a Navy destroyer directly. The RHIB reached the life raft minutes later, naval personnel efficiently transferring the team aboard. Sarah ensured Iron Mike received immediate medical attention, his condition critical, but stabilized for transport. As they approached the destroyer, Sarah kept her arm around Jack, supporting his weakened frame. After 3 years of imprisonment, he was finally returning to freedom, to family. Emma's going to be so happy, Sarah whispered. She never stopped asking about you, even when I told her you were gone. Jack's eyes glistened with emotion. You both kept me alive. Every day. They were helped aboard the destroyer, met by the ship's captain and medical personnel. Iron Mike was rushed to the infirmary, while the extraction team received preliminary debriefing. Jack underwent immediate medical assessment, malnutrition, untreated injuries, the physical toll of long confinement. As the destroyer turned toward international waters, Sarah stood on the deck watching the Aleutian coastline recede. The facility where Jack had been held was no longer visible, but its existence was now documented, its purpose exposed. Admiral Kelso would face justice. Jack joined her at the railing, wrapped in a naval blanket against the cold. Together, they watched the horizon where dawn illuminated the eastern sky. What happens now? Jack asked quietly. Sarah considered the enormity of the question. Their lives had been shattered and rebuilt multiple times. First, you get proper medical care, then debriefing weeks of it. The intelligence community will need everything about Kelso's operation. And Iron Mike, if he survives, he'll face charges. But his cooperation might earn leniency, especially if his information about this broader conspiracy proves accurate. Jack nodded, understanding the complexities ahead. And us, you and Emma, the life you built. Sarah turned to face him, fully studying the man who had been her husband, then a ghost, and now a miracle returned. He was changed thinner, harder, in some ways, his eyes carrying shadows that hadn't been there before. Yet beneath those changes, she recognized the essential Jack. Emma needs her father, she said simply, and I need my husband. The rest we'll figure out together. Jack's hand found hers on the railing, fingers intertwining. The touch sealed a promise between them. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a family reunited. 3 weeks later, Eagle Ridge, Montana. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Sheriff Garrison's front yard as Sarah's SUV turned into the driveway. In the passenger seat, Jack sat straight-backed despite the lingering weakness from his ordeal. 2 weeks in a naval hospital, followed by intensive debriefing sessions, had improved his physical condition, but true healing would take longer. You ready for this? Sarah asked, turning off the engine. Jack's eyes fixed on the modest ranch house where Emma waited, unaware that her father was about to walk back into her life after 3 years. I've thought about this moment every day, he said, voice thick with emotion. What if she doesn't remember me? She remembers, Sarah assured him. She's kept your photo by her bed, talks to it sometimes. The front door opened. Walt appeared leaning on a cane, his leg wound from their escape still healing. Beside him stood Doc Thompson, a steadying hand on the shoulder of an 8-year-old girl with honey blonde hair. Emma. Her face was a perfect blend of her parents, Sarah's green eyes, Jack's determined jawline. She scanned the vehicle warily, expecting her mother but uncertain about the passenger. Let's go, Sarah said, squeezing Jack's hand. Our daughter's waiting. They stepped out of the car together. Emma's eyes widened as she recognized the man beside her, mother older, thinner than in the photographs, but unmistakably her father. Daddy? The word was barely audible, a whispered question containing 3 years of hope. Jack knelt on the gravel driveway, arms outstretched. Emma, my baby girl. Emma stood frozen for one heartbeat too. Then with a cry that contained both joy and disbelief, she bolted forward, nearly knocking Jack over as she crashed into his embrace. You came back. Mommy said you would come back. Jack's arms enveloped his daughter, tears flowing freely down his face. I never stopped trying to get home to you, sweetheart. Never. Sarah knelt beside them, completing the family circle. For the first time in 3 years, the Reeves family was whole again. Walt and Doc retreated into the house, giving them privacy for this sacred moment of reunion. Through the window, Walt caught Sarah's eye and nodded a silent acknowledgement of a promise kept. Later, as they sat on Walt's porch while Emma excitedly showed Jack her drawings and school books, Sarah's satellite phone vibrated, the secure line that only a handful of people possessed. Ghostbird, she answered, moving to the porch railing for privacy. It's Condor, came Captain Reynolds' voice. Iron Mike's talking. His intelligence is solid. 6 arrests already at Pentagon and Langley, more coming. Kelso's singing too, trying to cut a deal. And the Russian connection? Diplomatic explosion. Evidence of deep penetration into multiple agencies. This goes beyond Cold War espionage. It's a consortium of officials selling American security to the highest bidders. Sarah watched Jack laughing with Emma, his eyes alight with joy despite the shadows of his captivity. What about us? She asked. Jack's testimony will be crucial to these cases. Witness protection is an option, Reynolds replied. But knowing you two, I've secured an alternative. NCIS Counterintelligence Division needs a new joint task force. Off-books specialized in hunting exactly this type of network. You're offering us jobs. Offering you a mission, Reynolds corrected. One worthy of your particular talents. Think about it. No rush. Sarah ended the call and rejoined her family. Emma was now curled against Jack's side, her head on his shoulder, as he told her a sanitized version of his adventure away from home. Everything okay? Jack asked, noting Sarah's expression. Just work, she said. Something to discuss later. Jack nodded, understanding. They had promised no more secrets between them. That night, after Emma had finally fallen asleep, reluctant to let her father out of her sight, Sarah and Jack sat on the guest room bed in Walt's house, planning their next steps. Reynolds offered us positions, Sarah explained. Hunting the network Iron Mike exposed. Jack considered this. Back in the game, a different game, on our terms this time. And Emma, she comes first, always. Sarah took his hands in hers. We find a balance, build a real home, not just a cover identity. What about the diner? Jack asked with a small smile. I hear you make a mean blueberry pancake now. Maybe I'll open another one someday, when we finish this mission. Sarah leaned against his shoulder. What do you want, Jack? After everything you've been through, you deserve to choose. Jack was silent for a long moment, considering. 3 years in that cell, I had a lot of time to think about what matters. It's not the missions or the adrenaline. He looked toward the room where Emma slept. It's this: family, purpose, doing work that matters. So we take Reynolds' offer. On our terms, Jack agreed. No deep cover, no separate assignments. We work as a team or not at all. Sarah nodded. I'll call him tomorrow. Jack pulled her closer, his arms still thin but gaining strength daily. 3 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. Now I have a second chance. His voice grew determined. We're going to dismantle Kelso's network completely, not just for national security, for us, for Emma, so we can truly be free. Sarah rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady heartbeat she'd thought silenced forever. The quiet life she'd built in Eagle Ridge had been a shelter, not a true home. With Jack's return, she could finally reconcile the two halves of herself, Sarah Miller and Lieutenant Reeves, into a whole person. Outside, the Montana night wrapped around Sheriff Garrison's house, stars brilliant above the landscape they'd come to call home. Emma slept peacefully down the hall, her family complete again, against all odds. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the remnants of Kelso's conspiracy, the process of rebuilding Jack's official identity, the balance between duty and family they both sought. But for tonight, in this moment, Sarah allowed herself something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. They were going home. All of them, together, twist revelation. As she drifted towards sleep in Jack's arms, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown sender, encrypted origin. She opened it to find 6 words that sent a chill through her veins. This isn't over. Kelso wasn't alone. Sarah stared at the message, then deleted it without waking Jack. Tomorrow would be soon enough to face this new threat. Tonight belonged to their reunion. But the message confirmed what she'd suspected all along. Their greatest mission was just beginning.